name is James Keith Walton. This conversation is about the actual state of the United States and what really is happening in the country. Very rarely do I hear politicians of either party talk about actual numbers of people and lives. Now, when I decided to look at the problems in the American society and study them, what I decided was that I would also keep in the back of my mind at all times that these are people's lives, that every number represents people. So the data that I'm using is a little dated. It's from a publication in 2012, and the data was taken from 2009-2010 period when we had the census, and this is information from the Census Bureau. So in 2009-2010, there are 117,538,000 households in the United States. A household is comprised of 2.5 people. Okay, of those 117,538,000 households, of those 95,489,000 are white households, 14,730,000 are black households, 4,687,000 are Asian households, and 13,298,000 are Hispanic households. So when we actually look into these numbers and break them out by income, what we see is that those people, those number of households by race between $0 and $15,000 a year for white people is 10,885,746 households. For black people, it's or African Americans, they say black in the census data, and that's so for black households that'd be 3,461,550. For Asian households that make between $0 and $15,000 per year is 548,379 households, and of Hispanics between $0 and $15,000, that number would be 2,150,580 households. Now, between the amount of $15,000 to $25,000, you have 11,076,704 Caucasian households. You would have 2,268,420 African American households. You would have 370,273 Asian households, and you would have 2,021,296 Hispanic households. Now, between the amounts of 25,000 earning between 25,000 to 35,000, those households would be 10,312,812 Caucasian households. There would be 1,973,820 black households. You would have 384,334 Asian households, and you would have 1,901,614 Hispanic households. Into the final category that I've been focusing on is that 35 to 50,000. So when I mentioned earlier in other videos that I was going to focus on those households that make between $0 and $50,000 a year. That was going to be my main focus. And so between $35,000 and $50,000 a year, what you have is 13,559,438 households that are Caucasian in the United States in 2010. You have 2,150,580 households that are African American. You have 520,257 that are Asian households, and you have 2,047,892 Hispanic households that make between the $35,000 and $50,000 per year. Now we have to remember these are lives. And so when we add up all these numbers together, what we have is about half the population in the United States, half of the households that are living and making less than $50,000 a year. And this is what I'm trying to address. This is what I consider to be the biggest issue that the United States has. It's socioeconomic. Now, I studied the writings of the Reverend Martin Luther King, and read quite a bit. And quite frankly, at the last couple of years of his life before he was assassinated, he was very much intent on showing that race played a less part in poverty than actual socioeconomic status. There's a song, it's by Everlast, and it says something to the effect that, you know, where you end up is pretty close to where you start. So we've got to break that cycle and get rid of that song, stop that song. So if we look at the issues in the United States as socioeconomic and base solutions based upon that, then we will actually be able to move forward. But most of the time you don't hear these numbers mentioned by any politicians, and that is because it doesn't play into their agenda. It doesn't play into the far left, and it doesn't play into the far right. The far right doesn't want you to know how many people, households, the massive number of households. So when I look at this, I see that for Caucasians, that's 10, 11, 20, 21, 31, 43 million, 44 million Caucasian households are living and making less than $50,000 a year. That's a significant number. That's a lot of people. For African Americans, that we've got 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 million. 9 million families, households that are living, making less than $50,000 a year. For Asians, you have approximately 1.3 million that are living, households that are living under and making less than $50,000 a year. And for the Hispanic population, we have about 9 million people, households, not people, 9 million households living, making less than $50,000 a year. And so if we think in terms of, well, where does government spending go now? And we'll say, well, okay, well, we provide assistance to a lot of people that don't make very much money. So from these figures, you can see that no doubt the biggest benefactors from government programs like Section 8 housing and food stamps, etc., would go to the Caucasian households that make almost no money, because there's so many more of them than there are African American households and Asian households and Hispanic households. And this is something to keep in mind. You know, we provide a lot, but it's in the form of subsidies and in housing assistance and food stamps. And the reality is that money would be better spent in developing people who had better education and better skill sets, and part of my new homesteader program that I talked about in a video that you'll find online. And when you watch it, you'll see that I'm actually solving a problem rather than kicking the can down the road. And this is what our politicians on both the left and the right, the Democrats and the Republicans, for years and years and years have just kicked the can down the road. They put little band-aids on things and they say, oh, well, we're going to fix the problem, but they never really address the main issues. And that's because they are able to make money and wield political power by addressing things the way they have, which is band-aids and partial answers and incorrect answers and incorrect questions. They're not asking the right questions because they really don't want America to know the size and the scope of the problem. I solve problems, and in order for me, before I start solving problems, I always look at the scope of the problem and I try to find the extrema. I try to find the total, the boundary values. I look at and I want to see exactly what numbers am I looking at? What am I looking at when I'm examining the data? And so that is the point of this video. I'm talking about the scope of the problem in the United States and where I got my data from and what I'm trying to do. What I'm trying to do is deal with this section right in here. I'm going to try to move people up from that $0 to $15,000 range, and that will be through skill sets and development and education and home ownership, through all these sectors. And it'll be a program that's open to every single person because the problem isn't confined to any one group. anyone who says that it's only one group, they're not really looking at all the data, and they're forgetting that this is people's lives. These households represent people who drink water, breathe air, eat food, and have dreams and aspirations like you and me.